Hey, deserving listeners, a lot of you have been asking me for the last number of months to react to Kalani and Asuelu on 90 Day Fiancé, so let's do it. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I am your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor, and I'm going to watch Kalani and Asuelu. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing those names right, and I'm going to react as I watch. Let's get to it.
What the happened? You can't take a baby out of the thing. Shut up. Shut up. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so a lot of things are going on in this scene. And by the way, I didn't react to a lot of the earlier episodes because there wasn't really much happening. But in summary, the family is unsure about him, which is really typical to this show, and they're trying to adjust. But this is the first moment where I feel like I have something to react to. A lot of things are happening. One is that for Kalani, she has been raising her child alone or with her sister for a long time now. And now Asuelu arrives and is really eager to be a parent. He really wants to be a father. He is very interested in learning how to be a father. He's involved. He has a lot of motivation. And Kalani is having a hard time with that. She is emotionally having a hard time with that. Like all of a sudden, day one, you just consider yourself to be like 50% of the parent system here. And I don't think you know what you're doing, and I'm not quite sure what's happening. So all that's normal, and it's a transition period for the family. And for him, he considers himself to be the child's father. He wants to be involved, and he's eager. And so now she has to contend with what that means, with what his intentions are, or his style of parenting, for example. Okay, so that's happening right now. Another context is that he's from another country that I'm guessing has a lot more lax laws. I don't know, but Samoa, I'm guessing, has different laws about children in cars because the United States is extremely strict. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s when people didn't even wear seatbelts. I'm just guessing that for Asuelu, he either doesn't know about the laws in Samoa or they just have different customs. And there's actually some research on this. I don't know if this has anything to do with this right now, but in the United States, we tend to put children into very elaborate machines like the car seat or the stroller or the crib, or we have all these machines and implements, tubs for our babies, and there are good reasons for it for sure. But in a lot of other countries, and particularly in the past, we didn't have that, and we raised perfectly healthy, wonderful children. And one of the benefits of not having all these contraptions is that you spend a lot of time with your child on you, which really helps with building attachment and really helps with soothing the child. We can imagine this to be true, right? You strap a kid into some kind of contraption and they're just stuck there and they want to be held. It's a natural state, especially at this age. They want to be skin on skin. So now I don't know if the baby is in that situation, but I just want to point out that there are other cultures around the world. I'm guessing, it wasn't. I've read research about, it might have been Samoa, but it was other Pacific Islander communities where they have a much better way of raising their kids, and their kids actually have much fewer issues, and the adults have much fewer issues as a result of being raised in more contact with their parents, meaning that they aren't put into cribs to sleep at night in a room by themselves. They aren't put in contraptions. The parents are frequently holding. One, because they can't afford all the contraptions, and two, because they don't want to. It just doesn't feel natural. So again, I'm not judging people for using the contraptions. If you use them, particularly car seats, it's the right thing to do. But I think it's tempting to look at Asuelu right now and say like, oh my God, he's doing something really horrible. And okay, it's unsafe, but it's not necessarily as bad as it might feel to you because of the way the customs have changed. It's all about customs. It's about, the weight of safety that we put. Again, I just want to emphasize it's important to put babies in the appropriate car seats. Children die all the time because they're not properly secured in a car, for sure. So just want to point that out. I'm guessing I'm triggering a lot of people. Another thing that I want to point out is that I've been detecting a dynamic that is playing itself out really intensely right now of Kalani as the overfunctioner and Asuelu as the underfunctioner. You'll hear me talk about that sometime, where often couples, particularly as they get more dysfunctional, there is the adult and the child. And Asuelu definitely comes across like the child, and Kalani definitely comes across as the mom of Asuelu. And they're both participating in this dynamic. He is acting kind of childish, kind of carefree. He says things that might come across as a little irresponsible or even childish at times. And Kalani is always kind of rolling her eyes and really concerned about him. And so what's happening in this moment is Asuelu is taking over, trying to. So another context that's happening right now is the baby was crying, as the mom Kalani was pointing out. It's hurt crying. You know, there's crying like I'm uncomfortable, or there's crying like I'm tired, or there's crying like I want my thing back, and then there's crying like I'm in pain. You know, something bad is happening. And I agree, the child was crying in that intense form that would very much concern anyone. And just listening to it, watching the television show for myself, my distress was going up. So the mom is in the front seat, and she doesn't really trust Asuelu yet, which makes sense. The child is crying intensely, and the seat is turned around so she can't see what's happening. You know, the Kalani can't see what's happening. The stress level is going up. She doesn't, what's going on. Asuelu is a child. He's invading my space. I'm not quite sure about him. The child is, and then now you're taking the baby out of the car seat. I'm high stress. I don't know what's happening. I'm driving my car on the freeway. I'm not quite comfortable. There's a lot of stress, and it's all normal. And under that stress, she decided to talk to him like he was a child, like she was chastising a 14-year-old boy for doing something horrible, swearing at him, yelling at him. I get it. It's stressful. But I'm also guessing that for Asuelu, this isn't going to feel very good. It can be hurtful. There's a way of saying this. It's like, oh my God, in parents, you can really benefit your parenting and your relationship if you really think about, how do I word things when I'm really stressed out? Because we're taught in a lot of societies and a lot of families that when we're frustrated, we have to just blast people. But it's not usually functional. So one way to do this, okay, it's differentiation. Okay, I'm having an emotion right now. What's the best way to do this? And you say, okay, I'm really freaking out. And you say, okay, honey, don't take the baby out. Put the baby back in the car seat. You can't do that. I know you don't know this, but please, So that's a different way of phrasing it, right? Instead of just yelling at him like he's a complete idiot and that he's a child. Now, she wasn't completely over the top. We've seen worse behavior, but it was like that. Now, is it justified? No. But is it understandable? Yes. Stress of driving, hearing your child in the hurt crying, wondering, is something terrible happening to my baby? Is Asuelu even capable? My baby is now outside of the baby seat on the freeway. This is my nightmare right now. Lots of anxiety. The mom blasts him. Now let's see how Asuelu reacts to this.
You wait until you're out of it. I can't even.
Hold on. I just want to bring you back.
Hey, in America, you can't take a baby out of the car seat on the road, baby. We're going freaking 8. Give me the baby.
Yeah, as predicted, he has hurt face, which makes sense. Again, I totally understand her stress, and I totally understand her attitude in this moment. It is totally understandable, but there's a different way to phrase this to him. Maybe even telling him beforehand, by the way, we're getting in the car, and the baby cannot come out of the car seat no matter what. Unless something is an emergency happening, baby has to maybe predict, but it's hard to predict that something like this will happen. So I totally get it, but I've seen this dynamic already outside of this situation where Kalani seems to have an attitude of Asuelu is a boy and I'm the mommy. I'm the competent one. I know what's happening, and Asuelu is a man boy. And Asuelu also coming across kind of like a carefree person that you don't necessarily trust with sensitive matters like your own child. So I'm beginning to see a polarization. This is where it begins. There's probably been little moves, and people are sometimes attracted to each other because of this. It's possible that Kalani is attracted to Asuelu because he is carefree, because she's really uptight. I don't know. It's just completely speculative, and maybe it turns out completely differently as we watch. But it's possible that Kalani is really attracted to Asuelu because he's carefree and she gives him life and fun things and loosens her up a little bit. And for Asuelu, he really likes Kalani because she is responsible and has a job and knows how to do life. And for Asuelu, he's like, oh, I think I kind of need to settle down and this will be helpful for me. Now, there's nothing wrong with having that difference. In fact, he even said, we are complementary to each other. He said that in an early episode. We complement each other. And we talk about that in systems theory and couples therapy, as you know, that couples often are complementary relationships where there are different roles. And it's not inherently dysfunctional, but under stress and under lower differentiation, under more attachment traumas from our childhood, we are going to be defensive with each other, and it's going to become more and more polarized over time. So let's keep an eye on that as we watch.
I'm like in blackout rage mode. I feel like I have no control over myself. I feel like if we were not in the car, I probably would deck him.
You put a pacifier in their mouth. You don't pull them out of the car seat while we're driving and doing frickin' 80 miles an hour.
Okay, so she's still in that tone with him. There's another way to say this. You have a mission. You want to communicate something of high importance to your husband, your fiancé. So how do you say it? Well, there's another way to say this, which is, okay, honey, I get that you were trying to help and that's great, and apparently you didn't know about the laws in this country, but it's completely unhealthy and unsafe to have the baby outside of the car seat. Maybe you do things differently in Samoa, but here in the States, we cannot have the baby. It's okay, you didn't know that, but now you know, and just know that I'm stressed out right now, and just give me a couple seconds to calm down. I'm sorry I yelled at you. I know you were trying to help. You saw the baby was in distress, and you did the right thing under your understanding. You tried to soothe the child by picking the child up. That's a good move. You can't do that in the car. I know you didn't know that. So that gets the point across without being parental and aggressive and without putting him down and hurting his feelings. So now she's not over the top. In terms of what we've seen on this show, it is definitely not as bad as what we've seen. So on the scale of things, it's like a 3 out of 10 or something. Let's see how he reacts. Now, I think he's hurt. Now from his point of view, if he doesn't want to continue the dynamic of I'm the man boy, he needs to step up. A man boy will get sullen or will rebel or something or get super angry and storm off. A man will say, honey, I totally get it. You were stressed out. I'm sorry I didn't know. I'm really sorry. And I feel like you're kind of treating me like I'm an idiot right now. I feel like I was trying to do the right thing. I didn't know about the car seat thing. I didn't know. So I get it. You're under stress. I'm with you. I'm on board. I hear you. I will never do that again. And can you please not talk to me like that? Like I'm on your side. You can just tell me without yelling at me. So let's see how he responds.
What if one of these cars hits me? He's flying out of the frickin' front.
In Samoa, it is not really popular to put their baby in the car seat. So she didn't tell me, if the baby is crying, don't put away from the car seat.
Right, exactly. That's what I was suspecting. So for him, he's saying in Samoa, and then maybe he's wrong, but according to him, it's not common to put a baby in a car seat, or if the baby's crying, it's okay in our country to take the child out. And that's what I thought you're supposed to do. I didn't know you weren't supposed to do that. So yeah, that makes sense. Now, again, she's doing the right thing. It's the safety-oriented thing to do, to have the child in the car seat. So, but how do we communicate about that with someone that doesn't necessarily know that? Someone that you actually want to be equal parent, some of you might have had parents like this, or maybe you are in a relationship like this. when you do this, so for Kalani, the risk here is if she continues to exhibit the overfunctioning role with him and pushing him more into the underfunctioning role, the more likelihood he will become less and less involved in parenting. So a lot of times what I will, because they're just trying to protect themselves, they're just like, geez, I'm always being yelled at. I guess I'll just stop trying because they're always, my wife is always yelling at me all the time. So what I will see in couples like this when they come into my office, it's 10 years, 15 years later, and the mom, the Kalanis of the world, sit down on the couch and they're complaining about their husband and about how he's never involved, he's always at work, he goes out with his friends. And when I work back through history, I learned that they had these initial years, especially with the high stress. The first 2 years are the most stressful time for any marriage of a child's life. And research actually shows that. And so, which makes sense, right? People always think, oh, we're going to have a baby. It's wonderful. Now, on average, it's this way. Certainly for some couples, it can be a wonderful time. But usually this is very, very stressful time for a couple. So what I will find is that when we go back to that early time, the overfunctioning, underfunctioning dynamic was developing. Both were contributing to it. And then it caused this polarization. And then we fast forward and the overfunctioner consciously will be like, how come I'm not getting any help? Well, yes, you can complain about that because that is a viable complaint, but part of it is your responsibility because every time the underfunctioner ever tried to do something, because usually they're trying to be competent, they're trying to help, they're trying to do their job, but every time they made a risk, there was a slap instead of a, hey, I like to do it this way. Or, hey, I see you're doing it that way, which is cool, but I kind of like to do, like we're on the same team instead of, hey, you're doing it wrong. Hey, that's not the way I do it. Let's knock it off. Like that's the way you beat a child down emotionally. And eventually the underfunctioning spouse is like, I can't do anything right. And then they might passive aggressively get back at the other parent by saying, I give up on parenting. I guess I'm a terrible parent. Screw you. I'm not involved. I'm going out with my friends, or I'm going to play golf, or I'm going to play video games, or whatever it is. And so these dynamics are important to get on top of in the beginning. So hopefully they'll find a couples therapist. I say that in jest because it never happens.
Kalani didn't tell me the nice way. She yelled at me and she's very mad and say, why you remove the baby from the car? I don't know what to do because when the baby is crying, I feel like my head will explode.
He is saying, yeah, I mean, she was yelling at me, but I was sitting there and the baby is, crying, that real intense crying, that hurt crying. And I didn't know what else to do. I wanted to soothe the child. So I picked up the child and yeah, so it makes sense. But how do they communicate about it? They're both right. I want to be clear. He wanted to soothe the child. The child was the stress. That was stressing both of them out. But there was going down the road at 80 miles an hour, and what do you do in that situation? The child clearly wants to be held, clearly wants to be soothed. It's a high stress situation. He wants to soothe. I don't know what she would have preferred that he do. And so it's a difficult situation, and all couples go through this, but how do you recover? So let's see how they recover. Let's see if they can apologize or laugh it off or something. Let's see what happens.
Here we go. Pass him to me, please. Come here. I'm sorry. At least we don't have to move stuff. Okay, baby, I'm sorry. Can you look at me, please? Baby?
So even that tone, now she's apologizing, which is 2 thumbs up. That's great. She's like, honey, I'm sorry, but can you look at me, please? That's the way a mom talks to a child, which is not a good vibe to come from. If someone is really hurt, which I think he is, and he doesn't want to look. Now, this is him also participating. If he were to look at her in the eye and say, yeah, you did hurt my feelings, but I get it. You were stressed out. I didn't know. I'm sorry. But yeah, you did hurt my feelings. If he exhibits something like that, she probably wouldn't overfunction. So they both are doing it to each other. That's the complementary aspect of it. The more childish he acts, the more she has to act like a parent. And the more of a parent she acts, the more he has to act like a child. And so she is doing the overt style to, contribute to that complementary style. But he is also doing it by looking away, by not acting like an adult, which is to, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel hurt. But you have to extend yourself to someone else and say, like, I know you didn't mean to do this, but yes, it really, really hurt my feelings. So, please don't do that. And maybe even you cry. That's okay. Crying is often associated with children. Everyone cries. In fact, when I was a kid, there was a song called Everyone Cries, Oh Yes They Do. That was a Sesame Street song. Was it Grover or Big Bird that sang that song? I think it was Big Bird. Everyone makes mistakes, so yes they do. That's not the song. Everyone Cries. I don't know if Sesame Street had. I'm going off topic. But the point is that for Asuelu, he is sucking her in to be a parent, and she is definitely treating him like a child, which is really worrisome to me. To see it this pronounced this early doesn't bode well for the future. Let's watch.
I'm sorry I cussed at you. Oh my gosh, don't do that to me.
Okay, so let's analyze this. She's saying, I'm sorry that I cussed at you. That's great. Fantastic. We have seen plenty of couples never ever apologize for what they did. She's taking responsibility. Now, she could apologize a little bit more. I'm guessing in this moment she's still highly activated, so it might be hard for her to fully apologize, but a full apology would be, honey, I'm sorry, I yelled at you. It's totally out of line. I'm guessing it hurt your feelings. I was stressed out. You did the right thing under what you figured was the best thing to do. And this is advice that I frequently want to say, is that just saying you're sorry, even if you kind of are sorry, isn't really enough, especially in a situation like that. You gotta really demonstrate the apology. You have to, just saying you're sorry, even saying it genuinely isn't necessarily enough. You have to say, I'm sorry because, and I get where you're coming from, and here's where I was coming from, but I'm sorry. And I'm going to try not to do that again. That's totally uncalled for. I should have said it nicer. Just saying you're sorry is a start for sure, and it can help a little bit, but it's really only 10% down the road. And for him, he is sullen, he is sad. I don't know, he's probably highly stressed out himself, so he's turning away. It doesn't help his cause to not have eye contact and to essentially act like he's a 12-year-old being scolded, which is what he is, but he doesn't have to embody that as well. He could stand up and say, like, yes, it hurt my feelings. I get the stress, honey, but please don't talk to me that way. You can ask nicely. So the way he's acting, it's not helping. And then because he's giving her essentially the silent treatment, which really hurts her. And then she says, oh my gosh, why are you doing this to me? So it's upsetting to me to watch, because it was a stressful situation that any parent can relate to. I'm guessing every parent has had the situation. You're driving down the road, the freeway, and all of a sudden the baby just, for whatever reason, has something that's, really stressing them out. You're like, what's happening? Are they in pain? What is something impinging on their foot in the car seat? What's happening right now? Did someone do something? And you're driving down the road and you're like, when can I pull over? It's a pretty common scenario, and they suffered from this, and instead of it just causing a little bit of problems, and they can actually bond over this and have a laugh or say, we're working together, this is now tearing them apart, kind of. I don't know, maybe they'll make up. Let's watch.
The way Kalani talked to me, it's like a little boy. I feel like she punished me.
Wow. So Asuelu is really hitting the nail on the head. The way Kalani talks to me, it's like I'm a little boy, and I feel like that she's punishing me. Yes, that's very true. But Asuelu, I'm guessing for Kalani, she will say, the way he responds to me, he acts like a little boy. So let's continue watching.
Do you have your seatbelt on? Baby? Hello, do you have your seatbelt on?
So she is asking, do you have your seatbelt on? Which is great. And again, it's totally a parent-child dynamic of making sure that your son is wearing his seatbelt. Now, he should be wearing his seatbelt. I'm guessing possibly in Samoa there are different culture ideas about seatbelts as well. I don't know, but he is also possibly passive-aggressively not wearing his seatbelt to bother her. I don't know. I mean, he's certainly giving her the silent treatment to bother her, I'm guessing. And instead of saying, oh, okay, yeah, I'll put it on. And by the way, honey, I didn't like the way you talked to me earlier. That's the way an adult would talk. He is continuing to act like a 12-year-old who was scolded instead of like an adult who, there's a difference between acting like an adult who was treated like a boy and acting like a boy who was treated like a boy. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Tune in next time when we continue watching them. And please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.